Now it's time to hear from CEO Ali Oliver from the Youth Sport Trust. Ali joined us to discuss all things PE in school sport, including the recent funding announcement.
So the recent announcement came on 8th of March and contains a lot of things. Two things that people will have probably been expecting and hoping for. One is the confirmation of the primary PE and school sport premium for another 2 years, taking us up to the end of the academic year 24-25, and also funding for the school games programme, including the school games organiser network for the same period up till the end of the academic year 24-25. So the biggest positive there is, for a long time we've been living hand to mouth on year-on-year funding, and that gives us a nice line of sight to 2025, which allows a little bit more long-term planning, thinking, visioning. It also should take us through the election period, which shouldn't be underestimated, actually. Obviously, once we go into once the government announces when the election will be, which we anticipate will be sometime in the next 18 months, 2 years, we then go into a period of purdah where government can't make any policy decisions or investment decisions. So the good news is this should mean that we don't have any hiatus or gaps in the funding. The other things that were announced were, in terms of funding, further funding for the opening of school facilities, particularly to support schools currently not opening their facilities, and to give priority access to girls, young people from disadvantaged backgrounds, and those with special educational needs and disabilities. That's being managed by the Active Partnership Network, and there's sufficient funding, I think, for a maximum of 1,350 school sites to receive support. Also, in with all of this were a few expectations of government. So clear expectation around equal access for boys and girls to school sport, which is something the Lionesses have been lobbying and campaigning for since their success in the Euros, after many of those players didn't have access to play football at school. So I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit more later on. But also, again, expectation, ambition from government of 2 hours of physical education per week in all schools. And then the final information in that announcement was around accountability. And two things particularly were referenced. One was the creation of a digital reporting tool, which the department are going to launch to enable schools to report on their use and impact of the primary PE and sport premium. And we expect that to be further information on that to be coming later in the summer, alongside any changes, the updated guidance, for example, on the use of the premium. And then the final thing is we are expecting Ofsted to produce a report outlining very clearly the expectations of high quality physical education. So I think that's all of it, James, but feel free to pick up on any of the points. At the moment, again, we are still probably, like all of the listeners, waiting for further information on this. What we do know is it's expected that the school games mark will be used as a way for schools to evidence that they are offering equal access to boys and girls. So that'll sort of be gradually introduced into the mark, starting at the platinum level, and then obviously giving schools time to learn how to do it and the best way for themselves to do it. And then it will be filtered more generally into the school games mark. But essentially, the other thing I just want to point out is this isn't about schools feeling if they offer a sport. So let's take the opposite side. So say they offer girls netball, and they now have to offer boys netball, and therefore they have to cut some of the boys' sports. This really isn't about a black and white cutting of provision and growing provision. What this is really about is about exactly what it says, equality of access. So if there are boys in the school who really want to play netball and the school is offering it to girls, they need to find a way of enabling boys to access it. Similar, same would be true of cricket, football, rugby, those sports which traditionally have been either male or female sports in school sport. The intention here is that no girl or boy should be denied the opportunity to play a sport that a school has got resources to deliver, expertise to deliver, is delivering to one gender. And then if young people want to do it, isn't making that equal opportunity available. So it's really important that people think about the sentiment here. And this is about growing participation, listening and engaging with young people to understand what they need and then responding. Yeah, and actually, James, the school games is pretty good actually across the board in terms of gender equality. But of course, that is one of the things that the school games organisers now will be, responding to in the same way that schools are, and just looking at those competition calendars locally and making sure that if there is provision for boys in certain sports, there is an equal offer for girls. And as I say, it could apply the other way around as well, access for girls, for boys to sports that have traditionally been girls. But the intention isn't here to make it a nightmare for schools. This is just simply about equality of access, and we should view it in no differently really to, when we offer activities and sports for children without disabilities. How are we accommodating those with special educational needs and disabilities so that there is equal opportunity to play? Yeah, well, I think, it's huge strides have been made. I mean, the fact that the government are very clear about an ambition for 2 hours of physical education is a huge leap forward, because we haven't had that writ large really in announcements recently. So that's really promising. And
it's kind of back now, isn't it? The 2 hours was always there before, wasn't it? And it feels like it's come back front and centre now. It's great.
This, a bit like the equal access one, what we want to read into this is actually what we want is enough time on the curriculum to offer enough learning time for young people to develop the fundamentals, to then acquire the opportunity to develop the skills required to play sport, and then get involved in small-sided games and onward to competition. So this is all about enough time to deliver a high-quality physical education experience which allows progressive learning and development for young people, sequenced curriculums and so on. So I know the Association for PE would be absolutely with me in saying you'd much rather have an hour and 50 minutes of really good quality teaching and learning with really focused learning objectives, really engaged pupils at high levels of activity, than 2 hours when it's really poorly planned without particular intent and, random sports offered from week to week with no progression and sequencing or development of the curriculum. So, all of these things, it's a catch line, and it's good because what it does is it says to school leaders, to governors, to trustees of multi-academy trusts, physical education should not be cut on the curriculum. It should have sufficient time for learning in the same way as other subjects.